Today's podcast is brought to you by Star Local Media, 14 newspapers and websites with a print distribution of 270,000 homes and monthly page views of 600,000 online. Star Local Media, your community voice for news. Welcome to another edition of the Star Local Media Sports Podcast. My name is Matt Welch. I'm the sports editor at Star Local Media, and I am being joined by Justin Thomas, who's the sports editor for our Denton County papers, as well as Brian Murphy, who's the sports editor for our Frisco, Little Elm, and Salina papers. And gentlemen, I'm looking to my left, looking outside, and we're staring into nothing but just dark, cloudy, gloomy skies, and just kind of bracing for what could be a very chaotic couple days as the high school baseball and softball playoffs continue. So we'll see to what extent Mother Nature has as far as just completely just messing up the...
Hopefully it doesn't mess up this podcast and the lights go out or a tornado comes through here or something. That'd be
well, we did the back half of Monday's podcast with a power outage in certain parts of the office. Yeah, you could see like it was something like something out of the Poltergeist behind us with lights flickering on and off and whatnot. So, but nevertheless, we'll see just to what extent the first round of the baseball playoffs, second round of the softball playoffs, to what extent they go off without a hitch. At least, for this time being, though, we're going to talk some Class 5A baseball. On Monday we previewed the 6A baseball playoffs. We're going to shift gears to 5A. Some series actually began on Wednesday. The majority of them start later tonight. We're recording this Thursday afternoon. The majority of these series start tonight. So we will do what we can to kind of apprise y'all of what we have going on for our 5A postseason-bound baseball teams. And as is kind of tradition when we start talking 5A playoffs, we're going to talk some by-district baseball between 13-5A and 14-5A. One thing, not a whole lot of difference from last year. Of the 8 teams that made the playoffs between these two districts, 7 of them are back from last year. The only difference is that you have Lake Dallas who made it out of 14-5A this time instead of McKinney North, but you had the same 4 Frisco schools, which is weird because I would just assume that with as much parity as there is in Frisco ISD just across all sports, like your staples, like you expect like Lone Star to make it in football, girls basketball, Wakeland to make it in soccer and baseball and whatnot, but I was just kind of surprised to see that you have the exact same 4 Frisco schools that are in the playoffs for baseball for a second straight year.
Yeah, Heritage almost changed that. They had the season series to end the year against Centennial. Centennial won both of those games, so unfortunately Heritage did not make the playoffs. Independence had a weird down year. They were really good last year. Their season went right down to the final game of the year last year against Reedy, and they lost to Reedy and didn't make the playoffs, finishing 5th or 6th, somewhere in that range. And this year they go 2-12. Not sure what happened there. Liberty, they lost the district MVP, Garrett Cruz, so kind of a down year expected for Liberty. But still, I really thought Heritage could have made a push there. I thought Independence would be better. I thought Frisco would be a little bit better. But that's just how good the district is. There's Wakeland is so good. Lone Star is so good. There's so much talent, so many good teams. It's hard to gauge what would happen. But I guess same 4 playoff teams this year once again.
Yeah, for the record, those 4 playoff teams, you have the 1 seed for that district, Frisco Wakeland. 2 seed was Frisco Lone Star. 3 seed was Frisco Reedy. I believe those 2 teams technically tied for second and had a seeding game over the weekend. Lone Star won that. They got the 2 seed. And then Centennial rounds it out as the 4 seed. So the by-district matchups against 14-5A, you've got Prosper, the district champion out of 14-5A. They will draw Centennial. You have Lake Dallas against Reedy, the Colony against Lone Star, and Little Elm against Wakeland. So we can start anywhere. Let's give you a reason to talk though, Justin. Let's start with the Colony against Frisco Lone Star. Just I guess whichever one of y'all wants to take this. Talk a little bit about this series between the Cougars and the Rangers.
Well, Lone Star can be dangerous because they've won a lot of 1-run, 2-run ball games. I think I'll have to look back, but I think it was like 7 2-run games is what they won, or that they competed in. And they had some tough battles against Reedy. They had walk-offs against Centennial, Reedy, and then they won in the final game of the year against Reedy. They had a walk-off against Wakeland off the top of my head too. So a big win there. And so they had the seeding game against Reedy, the last game of the year. They won that one 5-4. But yeah, looking at these scores, they're so close, and I think that'll benefit them in the playoffs, knowing that they can grind out these tough games. They're not just blowing out some some teams and whatnot, but they know how to win these gritty games. You know, when the competition really toughens up. So we'll see. I don't know anything. I don't know too much about the Colony, and I'll leave that to you.
Well, Colony is back in the playoffs for the second year in a row, which is only their fourth time ever, and they've never won a bi-district series. So they're trying to get to the second round for the first time ever.
Well, they had the tough task of playing Wakeland last year, and so that was a tough draw. This is a much more winnable series, I guess you could say.
So they finished fourth last year, climbed up to third this year, and they were kind of right in the hunt to get in that second seed. So pretty strong district season for the Colony, because you look at the other three teams that made the playoffs out of 14-5A, and the Colony split with Lake Dallas, they split with Little Elm, and they got swept by Prosper, but they were winning one of those games against Prosper going into the 7th inning. They gave up 2 runs to tie it, and then lost in the 8th inning to Prosper in the second game there. So they almost picked up a win over Prosper. So they've been competitive against not just the teams they needed to beat, but against the better teams in 14-5A as well.
I feel like that's been the thing with Prosper. They've been winning at these games late. They've been close with Lake Dallas, Little Elm, the Colony, but they were able to grind them out too, just like Lone Star. That could be another, they're playoff tested. They have a lot of returning starters, but they have a tough opponent. I think is red hot in Centennial. They're playing some of the best baseball right now. They won their last 4 games of the year. Sorry, that was a transition to the next series. Sorry, but yeah, I saw them beat Heritage. They scored 11 runs in the 10th or 11th inning in the second to last game of the year. I was at that game. It was just no scoring from the 6th to the 11th inning or whatever it was, and then Centennial just scores 11 runs. And they have that capability. They have an ace in Stephen Pruitt, and that could be a dangerous team. I'm not calling the upset, but I think Centennial has the capability of knocking off Prosper.
Really?
Not saying they will, but that's going to be a fun series to watch.
You've called upsets involving Prosper before.
I have. I'm sorry, Prosper. I'm not calling this one, but this 1 versus 4 matchup is a lot closer than it looks on paper.
Interesting.
I think all these matchups seem like they could be pretty tight series going either way, because going back to that Lone Star Colony one, I mean, I'm sure Lone Star is the same way to come out of that district finishing second, but it seems like pretty much every program, if they don't have kind of a quote-unquote ace, then they have 2 semi-top tier options that they can run out there in both games. At least in the Colony's case, Shea Hardis, last year's newcomer of the year, and Bryson Lero are both having standout seasons, to go with some of their offensive players like Jordan Oliveira and Keegan Schultz.
Now Keegan Schultz, he won offensive.
Yeah, he was the offensive player last year,
and
player of the year last year.
And he's on pace, like he's on a
he's
he's
hitting in the middle of the lineup, having another strong season. Cam Hill was first team All District last year, hitting leadoff, playing outfield. Jordan Oliveira does a little everything, but the bottom half of their lineup has shown a lot of pop too. Joseph Whitaker, Chase Long, Wesley Pearson, Sage Bonner all have, hit it out of the yard potential, and so pretty balanced Colony team. And I'm guessing, all 8 of these teams are pretty similar in that respect.
Well, let's just for historical context or whatnot. Last year, this was these bi-district matchups. 13-5A won 3 out of the 4. The only team that didn't advance of those 4 Frisco teams was Reedy, who was making their first playoff appearance, and we can transition then to
Reedy almost beat Prosper last year in that first round playoff game. It went down to the wire. I don't remember the final score. I don't have it all in front of me, but that one went close. I want to say it was extra innings, because that was a 1-game playoff that Reedy won.
It was 3-2.
Yes, I remember it was a very close game. I don't remember how many innings it was. It might have been extras, but Reedy almost knocked them off. And that's another team that returns their entire roster. They didn't have seniors last year, so all those guys are back. That's another dangerous team. So I mean, but Lake Dallas, they look like a dangerous team. They have 2. Would you say they have 2 aces right now?
They have one. I mean, they've got 2 very capable pitchers. One, though, in particular is
which one's the ace?
Mason Meeks.
Okay.
Mason Meeks is the one that we can now transition into this series, because they're catching a Lake Dallas team that comes in on a pretty confident note. I would say they were tested a little bit down the stretch, just because of the way that the schedule was structured. They got to play their final 2 home series against a couple playoff teams in Little Elm and Prosper. Swept Little Elm, and then were the only team in 14-5A to take a win off of, or at least to hand Prosper a loss. And this is a Prosper team that's ranked number 3 in the state at the time. And that, whenever we talk Lake Dallas, it all just, whether it was me or Taylor Ragland, whoever's talking, it all just kind of eventually traces back to Mason Meeks, who, as we've mentioned, has kind of been their stud pitcher this season. And we, I had Taylor crunch a few numbers yesterday, just because I was just curious what Mason Meeks' ERA is in district play, and I was
district play?
Just district play. My jaw was through the floor.
0.
Yep.
Are you serious?
It is 0. He has not given up an earned run in district.
And I'm just looking at their last 4 games.
They gave up 2 unearned runs against Little Elm.
Okay.
And that is the only time in any Mason Meeks start against 14-5A. So and it's 40 1/3 innings pitched across district play. He pitched in relief, a few times if need be. He has been, him or what was it, Shea Hardis for the Colony. Either of those two are probably going to be in contention for pitcher of the year, you would think. But
Bryson Lear was right in there too, because he got off. I think he went 4 or 5 starts without giving a run over the first 7 or 8 games.
14-5A, not lacking in quality pitching. And
good luck, Reedy.
Against
Mason Meeks.
So that's the thing. If Reedy can so much as get a run against Meeks, it is. That in and of itself is, would just go above and beyond the.
Has Meeks been the main factor in Lake Dallas's rise to the top?
It's just because when you have that kind of a luxury, as far as you literally do not give up an earned run with one of your. You think of what that means, like for half of your district schedule, you can rely on being able to throw this kid out there on Fridays, and just what it's. And you see what it's meant, like against the Colony. They started off on Tuesday in the first half of that series. They lost like 11-1 or 10-1, something like that. Then they turn right around and win like 2-0 in the second game, which is what it's just night and day how different this team looks when you have just a presence as calming and as just locked in as Meeks is.
Where was he last year?
He was their ace last year. Yeah, okay. But he was, and that was a team that
he wasn't pitching like he is right now.
He was, he was strong last year, but his game has gone up quite a bit this season. But honestly, though, in the win against Prosper that they had last Friday, he only threw 4 innings, and this was an 8-inning game. So I think that might be, honestly, maybe an even bigger takeaway from that is that he only pitched half the game.
That the bullpen was so good.
And they brought in Tyler Duffy out of the bullpen, and he actually was credited with the win because this went into 8 innings. And Lake Dallas got a walk-off from Ben Price, and just that you could turn to your bullpen against the best team in 14-5A and not miss a beat. That has to be a pretty big confidence boost, you would think, for Lake Dallas just going forward. Obviously for as much praise as Meeks gets, it would be remiss to not mention Ryan Depperschmidt, who's been their other starter this season, as well as their leadoff batter. And he's been just as strong, but he's been plenty capable as far as being able to just being a reliable option you can throw out there. And if from what I've heard is, it sounds like Lake Dallas is going to roll with Meeks in game 1 of this series, because, you'd think to kind of set the tone there, and then you got Depperschmidt in game 2, and, we'll see. This is a team that missed the playoffs last year. The season before in 2016, Lake Dallas just kind of got on one of those magical runs where they went to the regional finals, which was their second longest playoff run ever, despite finishing 3rd in the district. So it was just one of those where just the team caught fire, and they were just dropping state-ranked teams one after another. Still have a few holdovers from that team, despite it being, 2 years ago, players like Logan Cowart, who was in the starting lineup for that team, guys like Jacob Machuca, I already mentioned Tyler Duffy, Depperschmidt was on that roster. So, it's a team that at least they've seen what it takes to make some noise in the playoffs. Now that they're back, we'll see what they can do against old Reedy.
Should be interesting, for sure.
Then let's quickly round this out with a look at the last of these 4 by-district series, Little Elm and Frisco Wakeland. Brian, these are both your teams.
But not least, Wakeland, I don't know how, but they're back. They're the district champions. Brand new starting lineup, but their starting pitcher Justin Karbowski has been their ace. He's been lights out. They've had sophomores and juniors step up. They're starting Luke Robertson in the outfield. He's a freshman. Guys coming out of nowhere. J.D. Gregson has come in at catcher, and he's been phenomenal batting the 3-hole. But like I said, it's been all about Karbowski. He's long, he's lanky, and he throws a lot of strikeouts, and he hits his spots, and he's been their ace this year. They lost their entire starting pitching lineup as well, and they just reload. I don't know how Coach Barry Rose does it, but the Wolverines, they can make a big run again, but you can't count out Little Elm. They lost the district MVP in Frainer Chavez, but now they have his younger brother, Frainer Chavez.
I can confirm it's a different person, right? They're not the same person.
Yeah, and his little brother.
That is too suspicious.
So Frainer, the freshman, is about 4 or 5 inches shorter than Frainer, but he's also starting at shortstop, and he's been doing really well. He's in the top of the lineup. I saw him crank a double off the wall against Prosper, against their Big Green Monster in the first or second game of the season, and so they still have. Logan Kohler, Oklahoma commit. He's been playing third base. Right. He's been one of their main relievers / closer. He was a starter last year, but now his role's been reduced to a kind of a 30-pitch reliever, and he's been a lot more effective in that role. So we'll see. This should be an interesting series. Little Elm, they've faced tough competition in Prosper and Lake Dallas. They beat the Colony once already, so they'll be prepared for a really stout Wakeland team.
We've also got one more team over in District 15 5A from our markets. They're actually in the middle of their playoff series. They actually began last night, and that is Lovejoy. As they once again, man, I was I was dead wrong on Lovejoy because it was 2 weeks ago or whatnot, and we were just kind of breaking down the teams that were in play for a playoff spot down the home stretch. And Lovejoy, for the third time in a boys team sport this season, had to rally and clinch a playoff spot on the last night of the regular season, what have you. The baseball team was playing catch up all season long, and then just mounted a furious charge and ended up just beating the brakes off of Royce City in their home series, which is essentially a playoff series in its own right. Royce City was in 4th place at the time. Lovejoy was in 5th. Lovejoy needed to win out and to overtake Royce City, and they were able to punch their playoff ticket. Didn't get off to the strongest of starts though against Texas High out in Texarkana. That game was last night. Texas High won that one 8-2. And a game that, if you just look at just kind of the base numbers, kind of strange. Texas High scored 8 runs on 4 hits. Lovejoy was able to get 7 hits, only scratched across 2 runs. Texas High did all of its damage essentially in the 3rd and 4th innings. That was where they got all 4 of their hits. Lovejoy, had 4 kids walked in those 2 innings, and even though, like I said, Texas High tacked on 2 more runs in the 6th and 7th innings, but there wasn't a hit in either of those innings. So just some kind of self-inflicted wounds by Lovejoy in that one. On Lovejoy's end, though, they did the bottom third of the lineup showed out. Luke Howell went 2 of 3. Mason Marsh went 2 of 3 with the home run. We'll see if the series resumes on Friday. If Lovejoy is able to right the ship there, they threw Jacob Eschler in Game 1. If they've been consistent though with the order in which they're throwing their starters, it would make sense that Jordan Yoder's going to get the ball for Game 2, and he's coming in on a hot note. He's thrown 2 complete game shutouts his last 2 outings, and we'll see what the Leopards can do. Going up against Texas High, one of quite a few teams that we actually have to transition then just into a look to the rest of the region. There's at least just going off of the state rankings on txhighschoolbaseball.com. Take what you will with rankings. They're rankings, but it's a nice way to at least put a little bit of context as far as who the dominant teams in the region are supposed to be, at least. And sure enough, there's in the bottom half of the Region 2 5A bracket, you have 3 of the top 10 ranked teams in the state, and that is the portion where you have Prosper, number 3, Wakeland, number 9, and Cleburne, number 1. So there is a scenario in place, and it would be the exact same scenario as last year potentially, where you could get Prosper and Wakeland in the 3rd round. Once again, Wakeland got the better of that series last year, and then the winner of that could see Cleburne then in the regional semifinals.
The exact same route as last year. Wakeland swept Prosper, and they swept Cleburne at the Rough Rider Stadium in Frisco. So that should be a fun rematch.
Cleburne's coming in hot. Cleburne's got a 27-game winning streak right now. So they have lost 1 game all season. So I guess that's good enough to warrant being ranked number 1 in the state. So let's see.
Get their comeuppance.
I feel like at least we have to, like I said, to mention at the start of this, just the weather. I feel like we do at least have to comment a little bit on just the weather and what kind of what factor that could play in not just 5A, but just whether it's baseball, softball, because I feel like with each day that you have, because we're just going to be in this constant state of flux as far as how many of these series are actually going to be played tonight. I feel like each day that goes by and a series doesn't get played, it almost like it amplifies the stakes even more, because you go from you might have a series where you have you do a home and home for the first 2 games of a series, and then you do a neutral site for that 3rd game. Well, if you don't play on Thursday, then all of a sudden you're down to either Friday and Saturday. So you have a case where you're going to do home at one place, and then you have to do the second half of the series, the second, or at least potentially games 2 and 3 at one team's home ballpark.
So they're not allowed to play on Monday? I thought they could play on Monday. Maybe I'm wrong.
I'm not sure, because I know Sunday is off is out of question, but I don't know. I guess having talked to at least the coaches that I've spoken to, it does sound like they're going to try to, if worse comes to worse, they would try to even go as far as to squeeze in a 1-game series on Saturday. So it seems like teams are going to do
3-game to a 1-game.
teams are going to do everything they can to avoid having to play past Saturday.
That benefits the underdogs big time, because if you can throw out all your pitch, all pull out all the stops, pull off the upset, who knows? We could see some first-round upsets.
And some teams are flat out better suited for a 1-game series versus a 3-game. Obviously, like you mentioned, if you're the 4 seed going against a 1 seed, you want to, you'll take your chances in a 1-game series. But if you're a team that has a bit more pitching depth, then that depth might not necessarily shine through as much over the course of a 1-game series. But if you're a team like, say, Lake Dallas, for example, and you've got that one guy who that if you throw him out there, then you feel pretty solid about your chances of hanging with just about anybody, then might not be the worst thing if you just have to go to war with Mason Meeks for 1 game.
And if it's a 1 game and you have to take him out due to pitch count, you can put in Deborah Schmidt and not have to worry about having to keep him healthy for game 2. So a lot of factors go into play with the rain, but we'll see. Hopefully it clears out and doesn't mess things up too much. It looks a little gloomy right now.
It does. It looks awful outside right now. So I guess then let's transition then to our fast forward rewind.
Everybody's going to be calling Prosper to play on their turf fields is basically what
pretty much. And
Boyd.
Boyd has a turf field too. Yeah.
Boyd
is Colony's out at Prosper, so maybe that'll help them and Lone Star out this weekend.
Yeah.
So then let's transition into our fast forward rewind, the student athlete spotlight. It's kind of weird how we did it this week because we did a 5A athlete for the 6A preview podcast talking with Mason Meeks, and now just to stay confusing, we're going to do a 6A athlete for the 5A podcast. So we're this week's spotlight focuses on Allen, which just won district, adding
Why
district.
You need to listen to every podcast.
That's right.
Keep you all on your toes.
Every single one. You never know what to expect. So we were out and we sent Kendrick Johnson out to Allen this week to talk with one of the standout members of the District 6A champion Eagles, shortstop Mason La Plante, committed to Yale. So quite the meeting of the minds between Kendrick and Mason. This is what Kendrick and Mason had to say. Enjoy.
Kendrick Johnson with Mason La Plante, senior shortstop for the Allen Eagles, for our fast forward rewind guest this week. Give some insight to y'all season this year, man. It's been like y'all came in as the hunted and y'all stayed on top the whole year.
Yes, sir. So, obviously coming off the district championship last year, you have a target on your back, and being at Allen, that's the same in every sport. Everywhere you go, there's a target on your back. Everybody wants to beat Allen. But we established a culture last year, and tradition doesn't graduate. We graduated a lot of guys last year, but ready to rock and roll. We're at the beginning of the year this year. We were trying to figure out what kind of team we were. We found out really early, however. This year, it's a lot of new faces, not a lot of experience, but a lot of guys that know how to play the game the right way.
How much confidence do you have going to the playoffs? The fact that y'all went to that gauntlet that's District 6A, where you send a little everything and anybody literally can be beaten on any given day.
Yeah, so it was a tough district for us this year. We played in a lot of close games, which I think is going to help us in playoffs as well. Plano, Geyer was really good this year. Boyd and West, they were all very good teams, very solid teams. And we were called kind of the cliche team that our game was, defense and pitching wins, timely hitting wins, and that's what we are, I think.
Does it bother y'all the fact that some people, I've heard a couple people that see y'all play, it's like, man, I don't know how they do it. All they do is win.
That's right. Yes, sir. We find a way somehow. We talk about competing every pitch, competing every game. If you're able to win innings, then you're going to win some games, and that's what we've done.
How do you see you have a lot of young producers on y'all roster. How do y'all portray what it takes to win in the playoffs, the guys that went last year and went on that run? How do y'all help the youngsters we had a good season,
right,
but it don't mean nothing if we don't do nothing for him. It's like it's real deal now.
Right. That's a good question. Luckily the younger guys we do have, again, they know how to play the game the right way, and we always talk about if you play the game the right way, it's going to reward you. And it's just competing, The label on the game is going to be a playoff game, but we approach every game the same way. We approach practice the same way we approach games, so that nothing's a surprise for us.
Give some insight to how the impact Coach Coe has on this program.
Yeah, he's the captain of the ship. He's driving the bus. We would do anything for that guy. He means the world to us. We look forward to playing for him every game. We want to win for him every game.
And with you being a senior, do y'all feel any extra pressure with the, I won't call it the elephant in the room, the fact that what's been accomplished for this class in this school this year? Is there any extra pressure? The fact that if y'all get it done, y'all make history in 6-6A, or just something like everybody supporting y'all and y'all just kind of tune that out, because that's kind of like something that you don't usually sign up for. It's like, it's very rare.
Yeah, so one of my favorite quotes by Garrido is pressure's a choice. And I think that's the approach that we've had this year. Obviously, with basketball and football winning state this year, it's people want to say, okay, can Allen pull off the trifecta? I mean, we're going to do everything we can, but I think if we look at external pressures, then that'll be the downfall of us. So we're just going to keep doing what we do.
How much is that talked about in A country?
Oh, that's every day. Every class I go to, it's pretty much, hey, how's the team looking? You think y'all got a chance to pull off the trifecta? And you just smile at those people. Gonna just approach the game the way we know how to.
Do you think people that see y'all play, they don't get blown away? Like, y'all don't have no Ditzenberger or Cole Maxwell that can bring it, but y'all got guys that get a lot of outs. You think people, in a weird way, for y'all to have the record y'all have, they underestimate y'all? And that's kind of weird to say with what y'all accomplished.
Yes.
But for y'all to accomplish what y'all accomplished, nobody's like, they don't give y'all the same look they give the football team.
Right. That's something we were talking about the other day. Is we don't really have any 4-star, 5-star guys if you compare it to football. But again, baseball's a weird game. You string together a couple of good at-bats in an inning, and if you play solid defense, and if you got guys that compete on the mound and throw strikes, you got a chance.
How does it feel the fact that y'all getting that same support that the other teams got, which y'all about to make on this run? That everybody's like full behind y'all as if it's football season.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hopefully, I think we're gonna have a good crowd out tomorrow when we play Nelson here. But that goes back to just the student body at Allen. There's an expectation to win, and that's the culture here. We're gonna come out, we're gonna compete.
What's been some of your biggest memories being a baseball player here at Allen and being in this program, and kind of like, not that y'all were struggling, but it's like y'all class in the last couple of years, y'all definitely got it back on to where y'all wanted to be at.
Right. So, my freshman and sophomore year, we kind of struggled, like you said. We had the talent to compete. I just think, I really don't know what happened those 2 first years. But last year, we set out to change the culture here, establish a program of excellence. And luckily, we were able to do that. And like I said earlier, tradition doesn't graduate, and it's been the key focus this year as well, maintaining that culture, maintaining that tradition. And guys are going to continue to do that long after we graduate as well.
Which I had so many guys that left from last year's team that helped y'all go far. What was the moment this year that you like, okay, I know we can be that team that I want us to be, versus like kind of like I hope you kind of like you knew?
Yeah. So
was it a game? Could have been a game. Was there a moment or a game?
It was actually a couple of games. We had a very tough, if you call it, non-district schedule at the beginning of the year, playing Rockwall Heath, playing Rockwall, Coppell. All these teams are ranked, I think, in the top 5 in the area. And hanging around with those teams and beating some of them. That was when the light bulb went off, and it was, okay, we have something brewing here that maybe we could take this a long ways.
How does it feel to be a leader and a captain on such a team, and kind of how big it is from a school as size of Allen? Like, you can tell your kids about, hey, you're a captain and you're senior here.
It's an honor to wear the A every day. I look at it as it's a team of leaders. I think a team of leaders is able to compete at a high level. It takes a team of leaders to win district back-to-back years, and it's going to take a team of leaders to make a run in the playoffs. So, I feed off those guys feed off of me, and it's just a mutual relationship like that.
Do you feed off the fact that they look for you to get that offense started? It's kind of like, I heard a couple games like you kind of got a hit, and all of a sudden it's like they just followed your lead. Like you're more of a leader by example than more of a vocal guy.
I look at myself as a leader by example. I'm vocal when I have to be, but more so by example. In regards to getting the big hit, I've just been in the situation to do that the past couple of games. It could very well be Taj Bickham, getting a big hit. Like against Wiley, he was able to get on base, and then Sam Higwood bunts him over, and then I'm able to hit him in. So again, it goes back to I'm not put in those situations unless my teammates do what they do as well.
Does it feel good the fact that y'all playing your best ball? going towards? Because it seems like y'all got sharper as district went in, and some teams faded. Y'all got better, and what I mean by better is like y'all found ways to win, but it was always a different hero.
Right. Yeah. So we kind of hit a lull towards the kind of in the middle of the district. We took a step back to try to see or go back to what kind of team we are. I think we were playing outside of what we do. We were resorting back to the team that had success at the beginning of the year. We're a team that relies on speed, that relies on timely hitting, plays great defense, and we're always going to pound the zone.
You want to give a message to Allen Eagle Nation, y'all fan base, the fact that they support y'all and give them a little love for coming out to all the games, because y'all games be pretty packed.
Right. Yeah. So we appreciate it. Every fan that comes out that's supporting us, we thank y'all. We expect to see y'all. Thursday night, 7:30, Byron Nelson at Allen. So, thank you.
Where y'all confidence level at?
Oh, it's through the roof right now. Yeah.
That's it this week, coming from you from the A-Town, City of Champions, where they play like a champion. You walk through, you see it on the wall. Coming to you from Allen, Kendrick Johnson for this week's Fast Forward Rewind. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Big thanks to Mason La Plante for taking the time to chat with Kendrick Johnson for the Fast Forward Rewind Student Athlete Spotlight. So, gentlemen, to round this out, obviously, like we just mentioned, the weather could just as easily throw our coverage plans into complete chaos. So, but as of right now, just assuming everything goes according to plan, we get all these games in, not a single game gets canceled, which, yeah, that's not happening, but still, let's pretend it's going to happen. So, let's talk at least a little about what we have lined up, though, coverage-wise. Brian, what does your playoff docket look like for the rest of the week?
Thursday night, game 1, Wakeland against Little Elm. That'll be at McKinney North at 7:30. And then Friday, showing some 4A softball, some love as Salina takes on Sanger out at Frisco High's softball stadium. It's a little bit off campus, but that's a one-game series against Sanger. So see if they can get back to the regional quarterfinals for the first time since 2016.
All right, how about you, Justin?
Pending the weather, I'm going to be venturing out to an area I've never actually been before. I'll be at Wiley East for some softball tonight between the Colony and Forney. Yeah, I've never been out to Wiley, at least that far east in Wiley. But Colony, Forney.
It's yeah. You've never seen anything like it.
Can't wait.
It's like engulfed in a neighborhood, though. You got to
you got to weave through some. Yeah.
And then tomorrow I'll be out at Prosper for a scheduled early tip, 4:30 Friday at Prosper between the Colony and Lone Star for Game 2, if it is in fact Game 2 and not Game 1, but 4:30 Friday at Prosper.
Okay, and now to round things out for my coverage docket, tonight, fingers crossed, I'll be out at Highland Park for a one-game area playoff softball series between Plano Senior and South Grand Prairie. Plano looking to get the second-round monkey off its back. Looking to get the second-round monkey off its back against SGP. Plano's been dealt a couple pretty harsh playoff exits in the second round these last couple years. Looking to snap that slump against the Lady Warriors tonight. And then to close things out on Friday, I'm going to go shift over to baseball. We're going to stick with. We'll see. It's kind of up in the air depending on, I guess, what kind of space we got to fill for Sunday's papers. But I'm going to be either at Game 2 for Plano versus South Lake Carroll out at Air Hog Stadium in Grand Prairie. That one gets rolling at 5:00, or I will be out at I guess Byron Nelson for the second leg of their series against Allen. So we'll see what happens in the first round of the high school baseball playoffs. That's about all we got here for this edition of the Star Local Media Sports Podcast. Once again, I appreciate you for checking us out. Obviously, we'll be out and about covering all of these games. Every game that we can get to over these next couple days. So once the games are concluded, the first spot you can check out our game stories as well as video highlights, rapid reaction podcasts, you name it. Visit StarLocalSports.com. Otherwise, folks, this has been Matt Welch, Brian, Justin. Appreciate y'all for tagging along, guys. Folks, enjoy the rest of your week, and we will talk to y'all later. Thanks again to our sponsors, Star Local Media, 14 newspapers and websites with a print distribution of 270,000 homes and monthly page views of 600,000 online. Star Local Media, your community voice for news.